We live in a world of tension and conflict. And peace, even where it does exist, does so without guarantees for tomorrow. We must therefore face the hard reality that someday a nuclear attack against the United States could occur. And equally important, we must also realize that horrifying as that prospect may seem, destructive as such an attack might be, we can survive. It would not mean the end of the world, the end of our nation. And you can greatly improve your own chances of survival if you remember these facts about protection in the nuclear age. Three things to remember. In time of emergency, our government and many, many others around the world will be doing everything in their power to keep the peace. Second, you'll probably have some time to prepare. Of course, attack could come by surprise, but more likely, there would be a time of growing international tension with all its signs and warnings, lasting days, perhaps even weeks, giving you time for some preparations. Third, wherever we live, we're all inclined to think of our own hometown as target number one. But this is a very big country, with many cities, industries, military bases. And Defense Department studies show that even under the heaviest possible attack, less than 5% of our entire land area would be affected by blast and heat from nuclear weapons. Of course, that 5% contains a large percentage of our population. But even in these high-risk areas, if there's sufficient time to permit evacuation, many millions of lives could be saved. The other 95% of our land would escape untouched, except possibly by radioactive fallout. Now, here are things you need to know. First, the warning signals. There are two of them, and it's important that you know the difference. The attention or alert signal is used for peacetime emergencies, tornado and hurricane warnings, industrial explosions, other immediate threats to your safety. The signal is a long, steady blast on the civil defense sirens or other warning devices. It means turn on your radio or television set. Your local authorities have a peacetime emergency message for you. The attack warning signal is a 3 to 5 minute wavering sound on the sirens, or a series of short blasts on whistles or horns. This signal has only one meaning. An actual enemy attack against the United States has been detected. Don't pick up the phone to find out what's happening. The lines need to be kept clear for official emergency use. Don't wait. If you're at work or in school, take cover in the basement or an inner corridor. At home, go to your basement or fallout shelter, or find protection under the stairs. Take a battery-powered radio with you. Then tune to your local emergency broadcast station for news and official instructions.
Here are the official instructions. You must take cover immediately.
When a nuclear weapon explodes, 4 things happen. First, a blinding flash of light. Next, a searing wave of heat shooting out from the nuclear fireball. Then, the blast wave, carrying dangerous debris. And finally, if the burst has occurred at or near ground level, there soon will be radioactive fallout dropping from that mushroom cloud. Whatever you do, don't look at the flash. It can blind you. Instead, take cover immediately. Behind a tree, or a wall. In the shelter of a ditch, curl up in a ball and cover your head with hands and arms. There, till both the heat and the blast waves have passed. If your home is in an area where the heat wave has started small fires, use the next few minutes to put them out. Prevent them from growing into big ones. Then, shut off your main water valve. You'll have at least 30 minutes to do all this before radioactive fallout starts coming down. When a nuclear weapon explodes on or near the ground, tons of dirt and debris are pulverized and carried up into the mushroom cloud, vaporized by intense heat, then condensed into millions of tiny particles of fallout, no bigger than grains of salt or sand. Spread by high-altitude winds, fallout can blanket wide areas. And wherever it falls, it spells danger. The tiny particles emit invisible gamma rays, much like X-rays. And if your body absorbs too much of this radiation, it can cause sickness or death. It's not contagious. You can safely treat a victim of radiation sickness without fear of catching it. The one thing that can make you a victim is direct exposure to fallout. And you do have defenses against it. Mass, distance, and time. Mass means thick, heavy, dense materials to shield you and screen out most of the radiation. Like 16 inches of brick, 12 inches of concrete, or concrete block filled with sand, even 2 feet of packed earth. Defense is distance. The farther you are from the source of radiation, the fallout settled on the roof and ground, the safer you'll be. In large buildings of heavy construction, both the basement and the inner corridors upstairs offer good protection from radiation. They combine both mass and distance. And finally, there's time. Luckily, radioactivity from fallout weakens very rapidly. In fact, 7 hours after the blast, the level of radioactivity will drop a full 90%. After 2 days, 99% of the radioactivity is gone. And after 2 weeks, only 0.1% is left. In short, time is your ally. With protection, you can wait it out. If attack seems threatened, there are 3 kinds of protection. 1, public shelter. 2, home shelter. And 3, relocation. 1, go to the nearest public fallout shelter. wherever you see these black and yellow fallout shelter signs. There are more than enough public shelters to shield our whole population if they were perfectly distributed. Unfortunately, they're not. If the nearest public shelter is too far away, stay home and find shelter there. If you have a home fallout shelter in your basement, fine. If not, we'll tell you later how to improvise some fallout protection. For people who live in the high-risk areas, a third defense is possible if there is time. Temporary relocation. In a nuclear attack, the greatest dangers would be blast and fire in the target areas, which means the people most threatened would be those living or working near our missile sites, near strategic military bases, and near some of our larger centers of industry. To save them is to move them out to small towns and rural areas where the only likely danger is fallout. So the federal government, in cooperation with state and local governments, is now working on detailed plans for temporary relocation of these high-risk areas if crisis ever threatens. It is a difficult and complex problem, requiring much planning. But it is possible. After all, we relocate millions of workers from our big cities every evening rush hour. We have moved hundreds of thousands to safety in time of hurricane or flood. And in a case like this, it could save as many as 100 million lives.
Evacuation centers.
It would be an orderly, controlled evacuation. Your own local authorities will give detailed instructions through radio, television, and the press, telling you what necessities to take along, what arrangements have been made for transportation, by bus, train, or private car, where you will find safety in the small town or rural host areas, and what routes to follow to get there. When you arrive, reception centers will be there to welcome you and assign you temporary housing. And special arrangements will be made to upgrade the local level of fallout protection in case the crisis should be followed by attack. In fact, we need fallout protection in place everywhere, for there's no telling where it may be needed. But even if you're unable to reach a shelter, you can still improvise some protection. Set up a strong table or workbench in the corner that's most below ground level and away from windows. Cover the top with as much heavy materials as it will safely hold: doors, bricks, flagstones, books. Wall it in with heavy bookcases, chests of drawers. Then fill the drawers with earth or sand for added shielding. If your house is built on a slab foundation, use the concrete floor for shelter. Unless the soil's too rocky or a high water table prevents, dig a trench alongside the house, tunnel under the footing and up, digging out a shelter under the concrete slab just big enough to contain your family. Shore up the slab with timber if need be, and slant some heavy doors covered with soil over the outside trench for added protection from fallout and rain. Or you can dig an L-shaped trench in your yard, about 4 feet deep and 3 feet wide. Make the longer side of the L big enough to accommodate your family. The shorter leg will serve as the entrance. Shore up the sides of the trench for safety. Cover it with house doors or heavy timbers. Then pile 2 feet of earth on top for protection. In rural areas, excellent fallout shelters can be found in natural caves, tunnels, mines with horizontal shafts, and storm or root cellars. Cover the cellar with a foot or two of earth. Then shield the entrance with brick or block to protect you from radiation. Of course, the best home protection of all would be a basement fallout shelter, built before any crisis occurs. Your local civil defense director can supply the plans. With a little time, some money for materials, and do-it-yourself labor, you can supply the rest. Wherever you are, you'll need emergency supplies. If fallout in your area is light, you may be in shelter only a few days. But to be on the safe side, store enough pre-cooked, canned, or packaged food, plus special foods for the baby, diet foods for the sick and elderly, and enough water to last you, if necessary, for a week or more. Water is the most important. You'll need at least a quart, better yet a gallon, for each person, for each day. Store it in tightly sealed glass or plastic bottles. You can also use the bottled or canned beverages, fruit and vegetable juices, and milk from your refrigerator. Then there's your hot water tank. Water in the flush tanks, not the bowls of the toilets. And water trapped in the house piping system. Close off the main valve to keep that precious water from draining away into the outside mains. Turn on the faucet located at the highest point in the building to let some air into the system. Drain water as needed from the lowest point. Don't forget sanitation supplies. A metal container with a tight lid for an emergency toilet and toilet tissues. A garbage can for wastes. Plastic liners and disinfectants. Medicines and first aid supplies. Blankets and bedding. Extra clothing and underwear. Soap, towels, personal hygiene items. Flashlight and candles. Fire extinguisher and buckets of sand. And a battery-powered radio with extra batteries so you can receive news and official instructions. If you're going to a public fallout shelter, bring as much water and ready-to-eat food as possible. Extra clothing, blankets, a flashlight, special medicines, and personal hygiene items. Move to safety from a high-risk area. Pack all the other basic necessities your family takes when going on a trip, plus blankets, bedding, special medicines. For your own protection, remember these basic facts. First, the attack warning signal. A 3 to 5 minute wavering sound on the sirens, or short blasts on whistles or horns. Next, the effects of a nuclear explosion. A blinding flash. The heat wave. Then the following blast wave. And finally, radioactive fallout. Remember your 3 defenses against fallout. Mass. Thick, heavy, dense materials to shield you from the radiation from fallout. Distance. The farther you are from the fallout that settled on the roof and the ground, the safer you'll be. And time. Radioactivity does weaken rapidly. With shelter, you can wait it out. Take a battery-powered radio with you. Then tune to your local emergency broadcast station.
But it is not
They'll tell you when it's safe to come out. Don't forget spare batteries for your radio. Remember, too, that you have 3 choices. 1, to go to a public fallout shelter. Know where the nearest one is. To your office, your home, your children's school. Be prepared to take along food, water, the other necessities we've mentioned. If you decide to take shelter at home, know how to improvise and improve your protection there. And do lay in enough supplies. Relocation. If you live in a high-risk area, your local authorities may ask you to move to safety in the small town or rural areas. Be sure you know their emergency plan, so you'll know exactly where to go and what to do. Whatever the choice, take time now to make your own family protection plan. Know what you'll need. Make your plan practical. And make sure each member of the family knows exactly what to do if crisis ever comes. Don't wait till you need it. That's too late. Do it now. The Earth from space can seem a fair and pleasant place. And perhaps through strength and unceasing efforts to settle international disputes by peaceful means, we'll manage to keep it that way. The greatest danger is hopelessness, the fear that nuclear attack would mean the end of our world. So why not just give up, lie down, and die? That idea could bring senseless and useless death to many. For protection is possible. And your own chances of survival will be much greater if you remember these facts about protection in the nuclear age.